You're listening to the Thrive Podcast, where every week we dive into a practical, tactical tip to bring you from a life of simply surviving to thriving. It's personal development for the everyday girl who is done with coasting through her days, done with feeling like she's missing out on the deeper meaning of her own life, and done with mediocrity once and for all. Because it's not enough to simply survive. You deserve to thrive. Welcome back to Thrive. I know you're going to be lit up by today's episode with Christina Lenkowski. She is just so many things. She is a publicity pro and podcast strategist. She's a work-at-home mom of a special needs kiddo. She's a wife and a business owner living with a chronic illness. And she's just the queen of finding life's sugar linings. Also, she's hilarious. So I know you're going to love this conversation. And I hope you'll go from maybe feeling limited somewhere in your own life to liberated. Stay tuned through this conversation. Drop it 5 stars if you like what you're listening to. And without further ado, welcome, Christina.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here and talk to your audience today and, just have a fun conversation.
I know. I'm so happy to have you here on Thrive. I mean, I kind of feel like we're best friends already because I think we kind of almost forgot to hit record because it's been 20 minutes. We were just chit-chatting like, oh, wait, we got to record a podcast.
We got to do a thing here, Yeah.
I know.
Well, maybe I'll become the third between you and Taylor, and then I'm just like your older BFF, that can talk to you about going gray and cool stuff like that.
You have automatic, like, really cool aunt vibes right off the bat where I'm just like, I want to adopt you.
I feel a little old by you saying that, but you know what? I'll get over it. Yeah. I just want to adopt you.
I mean, it's true. But I mean, we have so much in common already. Like, we're both course creators. We're both total pitching nerds. We're both work from home moms. We're both Hamilton super fans, which is like a total fun fact.
Yes.
So we've got it going on. We check off the boxes.
That's so funny because I was actually, we watch a lot of Hamilton in our house. My daughter is obsessed. And I mean, I'm obsessed, but my daughter's like next level obsessed. And, we were listening just last night. My favorite song is Wait For It. What's your favorite song?
Oh gosh, that's like,
well, I know it's like a
favorite child.
Choice. It's a Sophie's choice, but you gotta...
It depends on the mood, though. It really depends.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair.
Like, sometimes it depends on if I want to, like, sing Satisfied. My daughter is 2, and she likes Rise Up, but she just wants to hear Rise Up over and over and over. It's just that one phrase.
That part, too. Yeah, I feel you on that. My daughter's 6, and she's kind of the same. She loves Satisfied, loves the Kings.
Oh, I changed my choice. I completely forgot about the fabulousness of all of the King, and he just wins. Jonathan Groff is just incredible.
He always wins.
Yeah.
Well, I can't even tell you, my daughter's mind was so blown when I was like, Christoph. We were watching
same guy.
I was like, same guy, and she still couldn't wrap her head around it.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, those are
like,
no,
I don't.
That's Christoph.
And I was like, well, someday you will. That's the same guy. Yeah. He's pretty cool. Yeah.
He's a gem. Oh my gosh. Well, beyond that, you're also a badass in publicity, and you can basically get anyone on anything. I am convinced. So you've got clients in Martha Stewart Living, in Reader's Digest. You've got people on MSN, Travel Channel. I'm just like, pick me, put me on something really big and cool, Christina, because you got it all.
Thank you. Yes, when I used to work a lot with tourism entities, tourism agencies at all different levels, state levels, city levels, that, any kind of tourism region that you could think of. And that was really, really fun to pitch to them and the different things that various places around the country, have going on, and to place them in some of those really cool publications, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to steal all your thunder, though. So introduce yourself to everyone who does not know you, because I feel like I've known you forever now, and I don't really know you all that well. So give us the lowdown of who you are.
Well, I am Christina Lenkowski, and I am a podcast strategist. So I'm someone in my work life that takes people, I focus on entrepreneurs, speakers, and authors. And I take them from best kept secret to go-to expert in their industry by being a guest on other people's podcasts. And that's kind of the big thing is people, a lot of times when I say what I do, people are like, oh, so I have to have a podcast, or, oh, so you help people start their podcast. No, that's not what I do. I help other people become a guest. And this is very meta because I am a guest right now on Erica's podcast. So I help my clients do the same thing. So them to get in front of new audiences and spread the word about what it is that they do and how they impact the world. And then in my personal life, I live in Boise, Idaho with my husband and my 6-year-old daughter. And, we're just trying to survive over here. We're just trying to live, stay married and have a kid and do all that stuff. This has been a crazy time for everyone. That's the understatement of the year. But we're starting to at least get back to some semblance of quote unquote normal life. My daughter is back in school today. They're back in school 2 days a week for kindergarten. So that's nice. And yeah, just kind of trying to get back in the swing of things a little
Trying
bit.
to thrive.
Trying to thrive, some might say. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, something I know that also plays a huge role in your life, since I've seen it play a big role in my dad's life, is type 1 diabetes.
Yes.
So,
I didn't know your dad has type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. That is actually really awesome because we can have a little bit more in-depth conversation on it. When people have like a personal, a personal connection to it, then that kind of even puts it on a different level for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you've had it for what, 2 decades now?
Yes, almost 20 years. I was diagnosed when I was 19, when I was at college, and I'm 38 now. So yeah, almost 2 decades, been, over half my life at this point, or essentially half my life at this point, which is crazy when I think about it. I'm just like, wait, what? But yeah, it's a huge part of my life. It's something that I, of course, am dealing with every single day. There's no breaks. It's 24/7, 365.
I mean, literally before we hit record, you were like, wait, let me check my sugar real quick.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, I'll get all excited about something and then I'll realize like, oh yeah, maybe before like she hits record, you should just like give a little look. And so I did, and we were all good to go. But it's, as you know, with your dad, it's just a balance all the time. And it's something that's always on your mind. It may not be the forefront of what you're thinking about, of course, all the time. Like that would really suck if that was the case, but it's always in the back. And, I read a study once that type 1 diabetics on average make about 180 or something more decisions a day than the average person. And I think that that's very, very important for those of us with type 1 to realize that that's why we get burnout. That's why we get tired of dealing. I mean, you just get tired of it. And I think that's what you remember is, hey, when you've gone through 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of thinking about making 100 and some more choices a day than everyone else, like, yeah, that's going to weigh on you. And it's not just a choice because it would be nice. It's a choice because life or death, truly. So I think I just like to point that out to other type 1s is like, yeah, there's a reason you're burnt out and there's a reason that this is hard. And it's not so much I have to take insulin. Everyone thinks it's taking insulin. Taking insulin isn't, in the grand scheme of it, that's nothing. It's way more than that.
Paint us the picture. Give us like the quick synopsis of what you mean by that though too, because I know every time I feel like it's every time I see my dad, it's like he's having to sneak the shots and take a little finger prick. And I'm like, I'm someone who hates needles. So I'm like, I don't even know how you do it. And you just have to get used to it because you don't have another choice. And
you would do it.
And he has to prick his finger and do blood draw all the time. And I'm like, that just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like it's just, that's like a lot. And you have to go through so much. And like you said, it's literally life or death. So give people the quick picture of like what that actually looks like so that people can understand what you're actually having to deal with. Yeah.
So essentially, just to give some background, the average person, like without diabetes, their blood sugar naturally kind of stays in this range of like 70 to 100. So, and this is in the US, it's different in other parts of the world, but just numbers wise, because, we have to have our own number system because we're that cool. We got to make sure everything,
really special.
Really special like that. Now that I work with so many people from outside of the US, I'm just like, son of a, because like everything is just very different in regards to numbers. But anyways, so in the US, we're going to keep our numbers. You're naturally going to have your numbers be between 70 and 100. When we're a type 1 diabetic, our numbers will not be that unless we were to take insulin. So naturally we run high. So our sugars go higher than that because we don't have, I could even break it down further, but essentially our body doesn't make insulin anymore, which is what your body naturally makes. So we don't have anything counteracting food. So when I was diagnosed, for instance, my blood sugar was 1100. Okay, so that is 10 times what the average person's blood sugar should be. Like I essentially just had honey, like going through your
veins
at that point. Now I had skateboarded to the doctor's appointment, so that was nuts. They were like, "How are you not in a coma?" And I was like, "I don't know. I gotta go." I was the editor of the paper at Oregon State, and I was like, "I need to. Can you just do what you got to do because I got to go work." But that's where I was at. And I was obviously having all these symptoms because of that, but I had never had anything wrong with me. No one in my family has diabetes. I'm the only one. All these things, I didn't know what it was attributed to. So it can obviously go very high. In an average day, it's not uncommon for a diabetic to go well over the 200s in blood sugar after they eat or something like that. With that being said, we also have the problem where we take too much insulin, or we take insulin and then we go for, we work out, or maybe you unexpectedly go for a walk with your family because you want to, and then we can drop low. So again, where you guys, a normal person might, your body's going to start kicking in and working when your blood sugar starts to get a little low. Ours doesn't do it. It can't regulate it. So we'll go into the 50s, we'll go into the 40s. And that's when we have our hyperglycemias, which is typically where you see the emergency situations. Having high blood sugar isn't really going to put you in an emergency situation. That's more so like long-term what it's doing to your body. But in the short term, the low blood sugars are really what you have to be aware of. Those are the ones that cause you to pass out or cause you to have a seizure or unfortunately for some people pass away. So that was a very long explanation, I feel like, for a simple question that you asked me, but that
was deep. We got it.
Okay. I was like, that's kind of a general range. And so essentially every day what I'm doing, and I'm lucky enough to be privileged with the top things, I'm lucky to have, through my husband, very good insurance. So I'm able to have the Dexcoms, which is our continuous glucose monitor. And I'm able to have the pump that reads that Dexcom and adjusts the insulin based on that. With that being said, I'm still testing my blood sugar 4 times a day. And they say in the commercials, like for the pump or whatever, like, now you don't even have to test your blood sugar. I'm like, girlfriend, any diabetic has control issues. Like I'm like, I don't trust you and your machine. So we are like, yeah, like I'm like, I'll take a test. Like I might cut down I've cut down the amount of tests that I take, but in no way, shape, or form am I ever not taking any tests. Like I don't see a scenario where that happens in my life unless, I don't know, they find a cure, which would be amazing. But there's things that are being improved upon all the time, in regards to our technology, and that's great. But people seem to think because we have these technologies sometimes that means we're cured, and we are not cured. Yeah. And I think that's really important for people to understand, because I think that they just assume everyone. Well, first of all, there's a lot of misconceptions about diabetes as a whole because there's type 2 and type 1, and they are very different. But in regards to that, people just kind of think, oh, well, you have the things now that read your sugars and da da da. I'm like, no, and that's great. I'm thankful for those things, but it's not cured. This is still something that I have to deal with every single day, 24/7, and that naturally is going to lead to burnout.
It's a chronic illness.
It is a chronic illness. Yep. Yeah.
So I know you're also so good though at finding what you've called the sugar linings, which I think is Such a fun play on words. I just really love that. So what do you think has been the most important and the most helpful for you in finding these sugar linings or the silver linings in life when you are constantly battling something like chronic illness that, like you said, like people can really get burnt out and probably depressed when they're dealing with something like this that literally has no end in sight? What are your tips?
Well, I mean, I wrote down this quote from an episode that you had a few episodes ago that was from a really inspiring lady. And what was her name again? I'm sorry.
I'm going to take a guess. Mindy.
Yes. It was Mindy. And she was amazing. And she said, adversity is the reason, or something to this effect. Adversity is the reason, not the excuse. And I absolutely thought that was amazing. And I really, really resonated with that because I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. Diabetes is hard. It is a hard part of our life, but that doesn't mean you can't live your life. And so one of the ways that I kind of look at and deal with the fact that I have this disease or that I have this illness is by saying, this is kind of going to sound messed up, but I say like 100 years ago, you would have been dead within a year of diagnosis. 100 years ago. That's not that long ago. You wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't have had a kid. You wouldn't have gotten married. You wouldn't have done all these things that you get traveled all over the world, gotten to do these things that you get to do. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm cheating destiny. And so I need to take advantage of that as much as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And that looks different for different people, what that means to them, what that is. But I think it's important to remember, like, I shouldn't be here if we hadn't advanced to where we are now. And I think that's one thing that kind of keeps my head on my shoulders sometimes of like, it's not like it's borrowed time, but it's like, this is time that you get to have that someone with the exact same condition, which by the way, we did nothing. No one does anything to get type 1. Like there's nothing you can do to get type 1. It's not because you ate too much sugar. It's not because, whatever. It just is, it is what it is. And they actually don't really know why. Some people get it and some people don't. Like I said, I'm the only one in my family to have it. Some people it is more genetic. But just kind of depends. And so, I do think about that sometimes. It's like, this is the hand that I was dealt. And I'm not going to sit here and be mad at it because what good does that do me? I need to instead be like, all right, well, I'm going to make a life that I'm like, excuse my language, but I'm damn proud of because like I have this opportunity that for thousands of years, people in the exact same situation never, ever got to have. So I try to look at it a bit from the sense of being thankful to modern medicine, to science. Big science fan over here, for making it so that I can be alive today.
Absolutely. Do you have any tips for people, maybe not necessarily even specific to diabetes, but chronic illness or even just something in life that you don't necessarily see an end to that's really freaking hard? Because I'm sure everybody can probably relate to that in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Where you are having to make these choices. I mean, maybe people aren't having to do it as often as you do, since obviously you have so many every single day that are now added on. But what advice could you have for people who are trying to more intentionally shape their perspective through this hard thing, where it is something where they feel they can genuinely be grateful for and not feel limited by, where it feels like a genuine gratitude and not just something where, like you hear the term toxic positivity thrown around, or people are like, you're just hodgepodge saying I'm being happy when like you're not really happy. So like it feels very genuine and real from you though. So like what do you think people can do practically as they're going through the motions of making those choices so they're not feeling as limited and can start to feel more liberated instead?
I think that, I think that's a really great question. I've actually never really thought about that before. So this might come out as like a bit of a jumbled answer as my thoughts kind of come out from that. One is I'm not positive about it all the time. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay to be sometimes I'm like, F you, diabetes. Like absolutely 100% that those moments happen, regularly. Like, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've been like, my family will just be like, hey, let's go on a walk. And I look at my blood sugar and I'm like, no, or like, okay, you guys go. Like, I can't right now, my sugar's low, or I haven't, done what I need to do to make sure I don't have a low. That stuff is annoying. To not be able to do what you want to do in the moment that you want to do it. Like, that sucks. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've been like on hiking trips or skiing and had lows, and everyone has to stop and everyone has to wait for me to drink my little juice, and then, wait for 15 minutes for it to start to come back up, and, blah, blah, blah. I have been taken down a ski hill one time by the ski patrol, though, which was actually very fun. Well, because I was just waiting for my sugar to go up. Like, I had juice on me. So I was like at the top of the ski mountain. I started to have a low, drank my juice. My poor husband's like sitting with me. We're sitting there for like 20 minutes. The ski patrol comes by a few times, and my sugar just wasn't going back up. Like, it wasn't dropping anymore, but it wasn't going back up. And I was like, and I kept like, they'd come by and I'd be like, no, I'm okay. Like, I just need to wait, da, da, da. And then finally they were like, do you just want to ride down? And, my husband was like, I mean, better for them to take you down than like be taken down like later on or whatever. And I was like, all right, or whatever. I'm like with multiple of our friends. And so anyways, the ski patrol, the most handsome ski patrol man of all time, comes and like gets, puts me on the little sled, but I wasn't injured. So it wasn't like they had to like, strap me down or anything like that. But so anyways, though, then they realized I wasn't really injured, or the other guy did. And it was like the fastest. Then they realized they could go fast. And like, I was just like, I was like on my own little ride, like down to I got faster everywhere, like all over my face. And I remember the really hot ski patrol guy just like gently wiping it off my cheek. And I was like,
how thoughtful.
This heaven. And then we got down there and they were like, here's more juice. And I was like, no, I don't want more juice, because this is all going to hit. And they're like, eat it. So anyways, then I like ate, I drank more juice, and then my blood sugar went high, which I knew was going to happen, later down the road. I don't know what the point of me telling you that story was, but except that, things happen in the moment and they really, really suck. But I always look at that story as kind of funny, because then I got to have this awesome sled ride, like down the hill. Yeah, you can be embarrassed, like you're going to, and I mean, I'm sure I was at the time a little bit embarrassed, like, okay, here's ski patrols having to like take me down to the bottom or whatever. But at the end, I was like, that was actually super fun. And, like sometimes I'm like, oh man, I should like have a low at the top again so I can get brought back down. Like, that's way better than actually skiing. So, there's times like that, and you kind of have to find the funny. I'm definitely always looking to find the funny in situations. That's just my personality. The other thing is get educated. One thing that I notice a lot of people do is we get upset about certain things and we just sit in our upsettedness, but we don't actually take the time to find out like what we're upset about and learn more about what that thing is. I mean, I can't even tell you, when I was first diagnosed with diabetes when I was 19, I didn't care. I was like, I'm in a sorority. I am the editor of this newspaper. Like, I was like, I got boys. Like, I don't have like, time to deal with all this, and stuff. And so for the first few years, like, I really didn't care. Like, I mean, I would test my blood sugar maybe once a day. I drank, I, did all these other, did things and stuff that aren't you do when you're 19, and all this stuff, and didn't really even take diabetes into account very much until I was a few years later, and so I think that was something that I think wasn't good, in the sense that I just denied it for a long time, and so then when it did hit, it hit really, really hard. And so I think if I had taken the time to, and in some ways, I think I probably should have been a little bit forced, because there's no way that I was going to do this by choice, forced by my family to like, okay, you're going to take 2 weeks off. You're going to go to learn about diabetes at, a hospital or something like that. And then, then you can have a better basis and foundation of what this looks like moving forward. Because I was just figuring it all out on my own. And that's not because no one was willing to show me. It's because I didn't want to deal with it. And I was like, well, I kind of just was learning as I went type of thing and what makes it better. And now I know that that's not the healthy way to go about it. Like now I need to be getting the information and then making a choice based on that, like how I want to move forward. And I think that was an important mind shift to have, because just denying it or just saying like, well, this is how it is, like, it's not going to be any better, isn't necessary. That's not the place that you should be sitting in.
Yeah, I feel like people do that a lot too, in a lot in life, even if it has nothing to do with illness. And people can have problems in a relationship or just problems with themselves. And instead of, ripping the Band-Aid off, so to speak, and figuring out how to heal what's underneath, people will just keep slapping on Band-Aids or just putting things under a rug. And then at some point, you're going to have a problem because something's going to get infected. So, so it's like, it's much better to just, I'm such a strong believer in ripping the Band-Aid off and actually figuring out what healing work needs to happen to fix what's underneath, to move forward, instead of just like pretend it doesn't exist or give it a quick fix for now and handle it later. Because show me a story where that actually ended up working out for good, and not becoming a bigger hot mess express down the line. It just doesn't happen. So, I agree. Beyond your own diagnosis too, I know your daughter also has a rare chromosome condition or disorder. So I'd love to hear more too about how you are intentionally teaching her to adopt and really choose the same sort of mindset and perspective that you have, so that she grows into her full potential as this strong and resilient girl who doesn't have resentment towards life right off the gate.
Yeah. Yes. My daughter, her name is Beatrice. We call her Bea. And she's 6, and she was diagnosed with a rare chromosome disorder when she was 1. So, to back up, she had, from birth, we had issues like failure to thrive, different things that happened, and just kind of, she didn't walk until she was about 18 months, various things that were kind of happening. And our doctors didn't quite know, none of us knew what was going on. And so finally, before she was a year old, our doctor was like, I think that we should get her, she was very small at the time. And they were like, I think we should get her tested for this disease called Turner syndrome, which is where people have one X chromosome, and like they're typically physically very, very small. And so we were like, okay. So we do the testing, and the testing came back, and she didn't have that. She didn't have, anything else other than these 2 chromosome microdeletions. And no one in the world had these same 2 in tandem that they knew of. So that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that do, but, chromosome testing is just now becoming a much more common thing that they're doing, and so we found out that she had these 2 in tandem. There are people, a small amount of people that have each of those particular deletions, but not, as far as we know, both together. And so, we did that. They actually ended up testing me and my husband, and it turns out that I have one of the microdeletions as well. It was just dormant in me, so it never presented, it never did anything. But when I passed that along, which I guess is somewhat common, a second one then also appeared. And the second one is actually the bigger microdeletion, like the bigger deletion. So we don't know, like, if the one that I passed on is dormant and this one is doing, is what's working or whatever, who knows? We'll never know, in regards to that. But, these things present themselves through global delays, development delays, speech delays. We do all kinds of different therapies, things like that. So it's a lot, it's a lot to do. And I think that I did the exact same thing. This is a pattern in my life when I don't want to hear things that, like when my daughter was diagnosed, I didn't want to even read the literature they gave us. I didn't want to look at that stuff. I didn't want anything to define. I think the issue is I don't want anything to define what my life looks like or what my child's life will look like. My husband's the opposite. He's like, I want a roadmap and I want to be able to look at all this and blah, blah, blah. Whereas I'm like, I want you to be able to write your own story. And, I don't care about these other what they think might or might not happen. And so, that was something that, same thing, took a while for me to come around to, until I finally started accepting what the reality was of our situation, which is that we don't know what the future holds for our child in regards to development, in regards to any of these things, what her life looks like, and that's hard. Me and my husband are both achievers. We come from families where, we all go to college, we all went to college, and we all do all these things. And we don't know if that's in the cards for our child and things like that. And when people, sometimes I say that to people with neurotypical children, and they're like, oh, well, we don't know if, and I'm like, it's different. So, sometimes people try to relate to you, and that is one, like, I was like, no. I mean, it's the same with diabetes. People are like, oh, my grandpa is type 2. I'm like, no. So, there are times when, people try to relate, and unless they really have a similar situation, they can't. You can still sympathize. You just can't empathize. And I think that that's something important for people to remember sometimes when it comes to these situations, because, people will try to normalize things or stuff like that, and it all comes from a place of good. It all comes from them trying to make you feel better, mm-hmm. or things like that. But in the end, it doesn't make you feel better. It makes you feel worse, because it's almost like a pitying, mm-hmm. to a certain extent type of thing. And that makes anyone feel worse.
Well, especially in a situation like that where, I mean, she literally, they don't know anyone else on planet Earth who has the same chromosomal makeup. So it's like right off the bat, kid's unique. Got to give that to her. Like, girlfriend is unique. And, 100%. But that's something where that must feel so isolating then too, even as her parent, because you're like, well, holy shit. Like, who do I talk to? Who can relate to me? Who can like, so for someone to be like, oh, I know how you feel. You're like, actually you don't, because literally statistically, she's the only one on the entire planet of like billions of people. So like right off the bat. So it's one of those things where sometimes I feel like you just need people to be like, dude, that must suck. Like hard. That must be hard. That must feel isolating, and like not going to tell you how to feel, not going to try to pretend like I know how you feel, but just going to be here in case you want to vent on the days when it's really hard and really isolating. Like,
I can tell you that goes over 100 times better than someone trying to relate to you that can't really relate to you. And to your point, I have found people that I can talk with about these things, my friends whose children might have autism or might have, essentially anything where your kid isn't neurotypical. That's something that I can relate to. That doesn't have to be exactly what we go through, but understanding what society, the pressures that society is putting on certain things, whatever form that comes in, that's absolutely someone that can relate to what I'm going through. And not only what you're going through in relation to your kids, in relation to your marriage, in relation to your family life, in relation to a bunch of stuff, because it plays into all of that. The added stress is huge, in all those things.
Mm-hmm. Even just as yourself, because I know you and I are both work-at-home moms, but I'm sure that your work-at-home life of being a parent of a 6-year-old with special needs is very different than my work-at-home life with a neurotypical 2-year-old. So, like, right off the bat, even give yourself some credit, too, because...
Well, and we have a lot of help, which I'm very thankful for. And for me, that is a huge thing. Like, if you're a mompreneur, even if you're not a mompreneur, just a mom of a child with special needs, take advantage of the things that the state, your state or your country or whatever is offering you. And I think that that's a big mindset shift for some people to get over. Like, my husband and I, we have insurance, and we have good insurance. We have these things like that, but it doesn't cover all the stuff that our daughter needs, especially when you need weekly therapy, when you need all these different things. And so being able to take advantage of, and again, not take advantage, but actually use services like Medicaid and things like that are made for these exact situations, that is a huge help. And, for some people, I think they feel weird when they're like, well, but I'm not on Medicaid. So why, like, how could I again, that's what these things are here for. Like, she's still under our insurance too, but she has a secondary insurance of Medicaid, and not being ashamed of like, this is our situation. You know, and I think that was even a mindset shift for my husband, who's kind of grown up in this like very, you know, we both grew up in somewhat conservative households, but like this, like for instance, I believe in universal healthcare just because I know what it's like to struggle to afford supplies for things that you shouldn't have to struggle for. And, you know, for him, he doesn't quite get that. He didn't quite have that same mindset that I did. And one time we were talking about something and he was like, well, I mean, like I don't know, he made some comment about how we could pay, you know, we could pay for everything that, you know, our daughter has. And I was like, yeah, but like, this is what we pay taxes into. This is what we pay. This allows us to be able to still be able to travel, still be able to you know, travel with her and do these things with her that we want to be able to do, is because we are able to have those funds because Medicaid is taking care of all the medical necessities that we need. And for him, that was kind of like a bit of a mind shift, I think, that he needed to have of like, oh yeah, we're not spending thousands and thousands. I mean, I have a friend who her insurance didn't cover this specific like preschool for her son who has autism. They're paying 60 to 80 grand a year out of pocket to send him to this school because their insurance wasn't covering it. I don't know if she ever tried to get on Medicaid. I have no idea, but they had to fight to get this for their son who was diagnosed with autism, you know, to get this. And I mean, can you imagine that 60, 80 grand a year that you're paying so that your child can get the help that they need? Like, that shouldn't be the situation. And either Medicaid needs to be taking that or your insurance needs to be taking care of that, whatever the situation is. So get help. I also have help in the form of a behavioral interventionist we have that comes every weekday to help my daughter with her school. That's all paid for by Medicaid. Don't be afraid or ashamed to get the help that you need. Our behavioral interventionist, the work that she's like, she can never leave me. If she ever leaves me, like, I will burn this house down. Like,
like we're all going.
I'm like, no, like, you cannot. Like, she is amazing. And the work that she's done, there are people that are meant to work with people with special needs, and they have the patience and they
calling, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's their calling. They're amazing at it. And she is one of those people. And like the things that she's able to do with my daughter, like she's got my daughter writing her name. She's got her, you know, spelling things out, stuff like that. These are things that like, we didn't know if we're ever going to even happen. And so to have those things happen, that's because of help. That's not because of me and my husband. Like, me and my husband help our daughter in every way that we can. But the biggest way that I believe I help my child is by loving her and giving her attention and making sure that she knows that she is loved. And that's what I think my job as a parent is. And there's other people that are there to help her with learning the scholastic things and the academic things that I'm not talented in teaching or in having the patience to do. Oh my God, I was trying to get her to do her Valentine's this weekend. Shirt show, like around the house. Like, I can't, like, everyone's crying, everyone's mad. Like, it was just not good. Finally, I just wrote her name and I gave them to her, the behavioral interventionist today, because she takes her to school. And I was just like, I don't know, like, if you can help her write other people's names when she gets there, great. Like, I can't, like, I mean, there are things that I'm just not equipped to do, but the things I am equipped to do is to love on my daughter and to make sure she knows that she's very loved and that she always feels safe at home with her mom and her dad, and knows that we love her very, very much.
Mm-hmm. Before I forget, totally can relate on, because our daughter was almost 2 months premature. So we were in early intervention programs with the state. We had secondary insurances, and like between, she was in the NICU for 73 days and then she had a feeding tube for 6 months. So she's neurotypical now. And like, now she's, you know, got through so much, but I mean, it was $250,000 that the hospital bills were. So, we were like, yeah, could we have some help? Cause that's expensive. Like, I don't think, and that was for literally like a very short period of time in the grand scheme of things, for things that were completely outside of our control. And they were 100%. Like, yeah, we'll take care of her. How's $250,000 sound? And we're like, oh, okay. That's a lot.
Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, I think that all that, and that's a total valid experience, you know, of having, that's a stressful time in your life that isn't due to anything that obviously you caused. And that's why you need to take the help that is there and not feel guilty about it, because maybe you can do without it. Like maybe you're like, no, we probably could do. Why? Like I'm a prideful person, but I pay into these state programs, and stuff like that as well. So I guess I don't feel bad about using them now that we actually need them. And I don't feel bad about other people using them when they need them. And I think that's important.
I think that also ties into just work at home parent life in general, because I know as you were saying all of that, I'm also in the back of my head going, I want all moms to know this, just as a work at home parent, even without any medical anything happening, that like help is a good thing. And it is a very, very necessary thing and a good thing, because like you said, like that for me personally was one of the biggest mental shifts in being a better work at home parent, when I was just able to put my pride down for a hot second and accept help that I could not, that like, being a full-time mom and also a full-time business owner at the same time is really freaking hard. Like that's a fact. Like being able to accept that, where then you're willing to go, okay, you know what? It's okay if we are able to have some childcare to help so that mom can work her job at the same, that's okay. And if you need to like hire somebody once in a while to deep clean your house because otherwise it's going to look like a pigsty, you know what? That's okay. Like all of those things.
I'm with you, girl. I'm with you. We have a house cleaner. We have those things. We don't have family around. So we do, we hire for our babysitting and stuff like that, worth every penny, or daycare. Obviously right now in COVID, that's a little different situation, but beforehand, our daughter was in daycare, and we were very happy with that. I don't know how you grew up, but for me, my mom worked full time and my dad worked full time as well. And so and this was before stay at home was a thing. My parents both went to work and, stuff like that. And I went to daycare. My sister went to daycare, and we're fine. And I think that that's really important for people to hear sometimes, is like, we're good. Like, we're okay, and my parents, like, I'm sure my mom had some guilt like around that, but she also has said like, but now I have two women, like daughters that both are, successful in their careers and in their life and stuff like that. My sister's a high risk nurse, labor and delivery nurse at a huge hospital, and, things like that. And it's like, yes, those things are hard, but we both are independent women. And she's like, that's what I wanted you to see. Like more so than anything else, is like, you have to be making your own money. You have to be doing these own things in your situation, because like, you never know what life's going to throw at you, type of thing. And so for me, like putting my child in daycare wasn't ever an issue for me, because people are like, but then who raised, like my parents raised me. Like just because I was in daycare doesn't mean that like I didn't go home and then I know who's with, my parents are who raised me. They're with me all weekend. They're with me all evening. Like we go on vacations, we do all these things. There's never an issue of who your parent is, in that type of a situation. And I think that's really, really important for people to remember. And I also think like, especially when it comes to daycare and things like that, we have this huge guilt around it. And my kid gets screen time too, but I would rather my kid be in daycare than watching her TV all day while I work. And I think that that's really, really important for people to remember too, is like, do you really think it's that much better for your kid to, if you're working, to just be sitting in front of a screen as opposed to going and playing with a bunch of other kids? Again, not in COVID time, but I think that you just need to figure out what works best for you, and don't feel bad if that is a daycare situation or having someone come in and help with your kid.
Mm-hmm. And it's so different depending on what everybody's individual circumstances are too.
Totally. 100%.
So it's like, you really have to just give yourself the grace to do what works best for your family and for your life, and give your girlfriends the same grace when they're making those decisions for their family, because it's like 100%. I've talked to girlfriends too who like really can't relate to what I do for a living, and they're just like, but I just don't understand, because you're just home all day on your phone. Like, how hard could this possibly be? And like, they don't at all comprehend, as good intentioned as they might be, the depth that goes into trying to do like if you can't, you're switching your brain is context switching 24/7. You're trying to like answer an email, and then you're trying to do this, and then you're trying to like be with your kid, and it's just, it could be a hot mess express. So I also want to hear from you if you have any other work from home parent tips that you can bestow on us.
Let's flip it to the other side. On the flip side of that, I have a really hard time relating to my friends that don't work. Mm-hmm. And I think that as a working mom, you need to also remember the same thing that your friends think about you. I don't know how you can do that. I don't know how you can do that. You're just on your phone all day. Some of us as working parents feel the same way about our friends that might be stay-at-home parents. Yep. And that is something that we need to work through, because you know that that's not what they're doing all day. They just have a different sense of priorities, a different sense of what they, you know, of what they want to do in their life. My best friend in the world is a stay-at-home mom. And I didn't get it for a long time. And I didn't understand, because I was like, you're so smart. Like, I don't know why, blah, 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 blah. First of all, that's a bitchy thing to say to your best friend, because she works from home. Like, yes, she's a smart person. She's still allowed to make that decision. But secondly, but she does so much for her family, like things that I don't do. Like, she does everyone, you know, she does all the laundry. Like, I don't do my husband's laundry. Like, I never have. Like, from where, like, I'm just like, oh, you want your laundry? Cool. Then you do your laundry. Like, that's like like, I don't have the mentality of like, I'm going to do everything for my family. Like, that's just not how I am. My husband and I both do our daughter's laundry. Like, some of us do it, you know, one of us does it one time, one of us at the other time. Like, you know, the dishes, all these things we're both doing all the time, you know, and for other people, that's not necessarily what works for their relationship. And that's okay. You know, and I also see the thing, like all this stuff she does with her kids, like all these craft projects, all these really cool things. Like, I think that's so cool. And I'm never going to do that, but that's what she has value in. Like, that's what she likes to put time in, and do that type of stuff with her kids, or do nice things for her friends, or do these types of things that, like, I don't necessarily have the time or inclination to do. And I think it's important to like give grace on both sides of that equation. I know that we've had to do that. My best friend and I, and realizing that you totally can still be friends, and just realizing that, like, that's what both of you are want to do.
I'm over here like snapping my fingers behind the mic. And also going off of that too, that also, you both very well can be good moms. You both can be great moms. Like, that's such an important thing. Absolutely. That you just hit on, is it's like one versus the other is not better than, or, no. You know, like, I think that society, especially, you know, maybe years ago, might have said otherwise. And that's where things like mom guilt or mom shaming all kind of comes into play and makes us all kind of crazy. But it also, I think, ties back to, like, we all have different talents. We all have different interests. Yes. We all have different love languages. So, like, some people are just more equipped to work in an office and have their brain on one thing 100%. And, like, maybe never even thought about the prospect of having a child until they were 28 years old. Yeah. And now, like, for me, the first diaper I changed was my own daughter. Like, I was not someone who grew up with this, like, natural maternal instinct of, like, I'm destined to be a mother. And, like, it was foreign to me. And then there are so many times where I have to catch myself from feeling like a bad mom because I'm struggling to think of a good idea, like a creative craft idea or whatever. And I'm sitting there going, wow, I'm such a crappy mom. And it's like, no. I have girlfriends on the flip side who think it was God's mission for them to birth children, and that is what they were placed on this earth to do. Yeah. And, like, that is absolutely great. And then if you told them, go sit in an office for 8 hours, they'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what do I do?
How would I do that? Yeah.
So it's like, neither one is better than, they're just different. And we all have different things that we're good at and different things that light us up. And then we have different things that we bring into and pour into our children based on that. Yeah. So it's like,
absolutely.
I love that you brought that up, because that's just so important.
Well, it's important. And, you know, my best friend and I, we do tell each other regularly that we think, you know, the other one is a great mother. And I think that that's an important thing. You know, literally just text your friends right now. Just be like, if you don't know, you heard her say, like, you're crushing it, you know, stuff like that. And the other thing I think is important when it comes to that stuff is, like, we work really hard as moms. Guess what? I also take breaks. You know, I go on girls' weekends. I do other things. I mean, again, it's so hard during quarantine, you know, to do that type of stuff. But I just had my first three of my girlfriends and I went up to this town called McCall that's a few hours north of Boise, and just spent the weekend together at one of the friends' family cabin. We all got tested the week before. None of us had symptoms. We were like, all right, let's just go get tested so that we're all, feeling comfortable and confident about doing this weekend. We had, of course, our mishaps happen. We were there, got locked out of the house at one point, couldn't start the snowblower, all this other stuff. But we just we watched Bridgerton, and drank a lot of wine, and just had a great time.
So why didn't you invite me? Because that sounds like I would fit right in.
Okay, saying. Next one, you're in. We did a paint and sip. Oh my gosh, one of the girls, her mom's so sweet. She sent this whole paint and sip package with like a YouTube video, and it was so fun. So we did our own, and although I brought it home to my daughter, one thing about my daughter, she does not lie. Like she is very, and I was like, hey, I made this for you. Do you like it? And she just looked at me and goes, no, and tosses it to me.
You're like, thanks, crushing me.
I was like, okay, well,
dreams crushed.
I missed you too. So yeah, I am a big believer in taking that time for yourself, and allowing your partner to take that time for his or herself too. If my husband, I know he's trying to plan a trip right now with one of his buddies to go down to Arizona, I encourage that type of thing, especially after this year, if you can safely do it and you can, safely get out with someone else and just not have to necessarily be around your family 24/7. I don't feel any guilt about that. I think that it's important to have a few days away from your family so that you can just have some fun and then come back and be a little bit rejuvenated and kind of ready to take it all on again.
Mm-hmm. Could not agree more. Oh man.
Yeah.
So I want to close out by asking you a question I ask all guests who come on Thrive. That is, what does thrive mean to you, and how do you strive to thrive in your everyday life?
Oh, I did tell you that I was going to drop something embarrassing out into the podcast. So I'll put this here when it comes to thriving. I feel like for a long time, I didn't look for any happiness. Does that make sense? I was just kind of coasting for a long time in my life. Everything's fine, I had my fun, weekend getaways or things like that. It was kind of what I just really live for. If you're an Enneagram person, I'm a 7. So I'm a very social, want to be out there with people, blah, blah, blah. So quarantine hit me very, very hard. Just being with my family and not being able to go anywhere. And I love my family, but we all love our families, but it's, being with them every single day is a little different. And it's not really what you signed up for when you signed up for all this. And so I kind of started to figure out what are those during quarantine. I was like, okay, you got to figure this out, because just drinking wine every night and watching a lot of Great British Baking Show, can only get you so far, on this journey. And so, I did those things, but I kind of just started to try and figure out what is it I enjoy. And I told Erica that I was going to drop something embarrassing about myself in this. And one thing that has really brought me joy, I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast, other people are going to hear, but I discovered the group, many people discovered them, but I discovered for myself the group BTS.
Oh my God. Is that the Korean, boy band from Korea?
And they have their own variety show called Run BTS. And I watch it now and I love it. I can't even tell you how much it makes me laugh. They're so frenetic. They're crazy, and it's all dubbed, or not dubbed. It has subtitles.
Closed captioning. Yep.
Has the subtitles there, but the subtitles, they add in comments, the editors add in comments of what the boys are doing or what they're saying. I say boy, I mean, they're in their 20s. They're not boys. They're, they're adults. And, but anyways, they put in the most hilarious, subtitles, subtitle, thoughts in there, as well as translate what they're saying. And it just makes me smile so much. This show, their personalities, this stuff. And I mean, I like their music too. I enjoy it. But just that has brought me joy. And my friends make fun of me so much. Because I'll be like, you know what BTS was doing recently? And they'll be like, stop. Like, you are a 38-year-old woman. You need to stop. And I was like, but see, Jin was telling Jungkook, and I like this like whole thing, like, and they're just like, don't care, please stop. But I just love it. And I have gotten to the point where I'm just like, I don't care if y'all think it's crazy. Like, I like it. I enjoy it. And this is one of the ways that I think you need to thrive. And that's not necessarily saying BTS, but like finding the thing that you find enjoyable, even if it's something embarrassing. Like, you don't have to tell other people. Like, I tell other people because I realize how ridiculous it is. And my husband also thinks that it's so weird. And like, I'll try to bring up things about BTS. I like try to get him to watch it with me all the time. And he's just like,
no, not happening.
Yeah, like he's like, I have no interest
That's
in
like me getting my husband to watch Bridgerton when I'm on my third time.
I don't know if my husband would
like,
watch that.
No.
Yeah. I also don't know if I would have wanted to watch it with my husband. Hey, could you? Thank you. But you know, I that's such like a silly thing, but it's so true. Like finding this little stuff that you get into, and then for me, like that's manifested in different ways. Like I allow myself to watch it at night after everyone's gone to bed. I'm a night owl. I like to then like typically I'll watch like an episode of it, something like that. And then recently I went on Etsy and I found like they had little pins, like, and it was like the different BTS members doing different things and like run like certain like iconic scenes or things like that. And so like I bought like a few little pins and I like have them up on my, because I have a huge like board behind me that has like a bunch of inspirational, you know, or like stuff that inspires me or funny things. And so anyways, I like got these ones and I put them up there, and it's silly. Like, it's just this little thing, but it's like, we're having to find new ways to find joy in the middle of all this. So like, don't judge yourself so hard. It like, if it's not the coolest thing in the world, you know, or, you know, everyone else thinks you're crazy. I mean, as long as it's something that's like healthy, I'm not like, well, I kind of got into heroin, you know, it's like, you know, like, I feel like if this is the worst that it is, and this is what's going to happen, like, I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it.
Absolutely. I love that. I couldn't agree more. I think intentionally finding happiness and seeking it all out is so important now more than ever. Couldn't agree more.
Just finding the things that make you laugh.
Yeah.
I guess at a time when not a whole lot makes us laugh, you know, in the world, it's when you do find things that make you laugh, hold on to that, grab it, you know, don't be ashamed of it and just enjoy it.
Absolutely. Retweet. So thank you so much for joining me on Thrive, Christina. I could literally talk to you for hours.
For having me. I know. I was like, I think ours are normally like a half hour, and I've definitely been talking for longer than that. But
that's fine. This is quality content. I mean,
okay.
Who's to cut this? Like, come on, this is great. Just tell us all where we can find you online, because I'm sure people are going to want to connect with you more.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said at the top, I know we didn't really talk about what I do very much, and that's okay, but I help people get on podcasts, essentially help entrepreneurs. I have a few ways that I do that. And you can find those at publicitybychristina.com/podcasts. I'll make sure that Erica has that link so that she can drop that in the show notes. You can also find me on Instagram at publicitybychristina. And that's Publicity X Christina. That's the same. I thought I was really clever. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. But that's what I did. And so Publicity by Christina on Instagram, and then publicitybychristina.com/podcast is where you can find out more about what I do for work. And please DM me. I love to hear from people just telling me what you thought of this episode, if you took anything away from it. If you're a type 1 diabetic or the parent of a special needs child, definitely I would love to, you know, connect with you over DM. So yeah, I just can't wait to hear from people, and I hope they enjoyed the episode. Also, if you're a big BTS fan, you're also welcome to DM me with funny memes and things like that make me laugh.
Wait, before you go, make sure you're subscribed to never miss an episode of Thrive. Drop 5 stars on your way out if you like what you just listened to, and come join the party on Instagram at thrive.podcast to stay inspired and thriving all week long. Thanks for tuning in. It's your time to thrive.